My name is Evelyn Hart, and for most of my life, I believed that if I just tried hard enough, if I were patient, loyal, and soft-spoken, my parents would eventually see me. Not as an accessory to the family. Not as the child who happened to be born second. Not as the shadow standing behind my older brother, Luke. But as a daughter. A real one. One worth loving. Today, as I speak these words, I know better. And if my story resonates with you, if you have ever been overlooked, underestimated, or quietly erased, then stay with me. This is not just a story of betrayal. It is a story of awakening. Before I begin, do not forget to comment your thoughts, share your own experience if you have lived through anything like this, and subscribe if you enjoy real, emotional stories told from the heart. Your support helps our community grow. Now, let me take you back to the beginning. To the moment my family decided that everything they owned, everything they built, everything they claimed to cherish, would go to my brother. And the moment my mother texted me words that shattered the last piece of my childhood illusion. It is over between us. But to understand why that message cuts so deeply, you need to understand where this all began. Growing up in Portwell, a quiet coastal town full of white fences and postcard smiles, my family looked perfect from the outside. My father, Benjamin, owned a marine supply business. My mother, Caroline, stayed home, keeping everything in elegant order, our clothes pressed, our dinners warm, our family photos staged like magazine spreads. And then there was Luke, the golden boy, the firstborn, the heir to the Hart legacy long before he could even spell the word legacy. People used to say we were lucky, 2 children, 1 boy and 1 girl, a balanced, beautiful family. But inside our house, balance did not exist. Every achievement, I had every A on my report card, every award, every tiny victory I brought home was met with a polite smile, a nod, a distracted, "Well done, dear." But if Luke so much as showed up and breathed, it was celebrated like a holiday. I remember one day in 7th grade, I came home trembling with excitement because I had won a regional writing competition. Only 5 students in the entire state were chosen. My mother hung the certificate on the refrigerator for exactly 1 day. The next morning, she replaced it with Luke's lacrosse schedule. "It is more practical," she said, without looking at me. I was 13 years old, and that was the first time I realized love in my family was not distributed. It was allocated. By the time I entered high school, I understood the rules. Luke mattered more. I was expected to support him, not surpass him. My opinions were welcomed only when they aligned with theirs. And my future, well, that was never really discussed. My father used to say, "A son carries the family forward. A daughter builds her own life somewhere else." He said it casually, as though it were a fact of nature. But every time I heard those words, something inside me tightened. A quiet knot. A quiet knowing that one day, something would break. Still, I tried to be the daughter they wanted. Soft, obedient, grateful. For years, I convinced myself that their behavior was love, just imperfect and misdirected. I told myself it was enough. But love, real love, does not ask you to disappear. I was 25 the day everything shifted. My parents invited me and Luke to dinner at their house. It was a Sunday evening, warm, with the faint smell of ocean salt drifting in through the windows. The table was set like a holiday, silver candlesticks, linen napkins, my mother's favorite china. I remember thinking it was strange, because she usually saved that set for Christmas Eve. We sat down, and conversation trickled lightly for a few minutes. Luke talking about his new promotion at the marina. My mother nodding, sparkling with pride. My father sipping wine like a man satisfied with his kingdom. Then he cleared his throat. "There is something we want to share," he said, folding his hands on the table. "Your mother and I have updated our estate plan." The words hit me like a cold mist, unexpected, unsettling. Estate plan? We had never talked about inheritance. Not once. But then my father continued. "We have decided that everything, the house, the land, the business, the investments, will go to Luke." Just like that. Said as easily as if he were announcing the weather. My mother smiled softly at Luke. Luke grinned, touched his chest, pretending to be humble. And I sat frozen, a single question slicing through my mind. What about me? My voice came out small, barely audible. Why would everything go to him? My father looked at me as though the answer was obvious. You're going to build your own life. You have your writing. You are independent. Luke needs the structure. And besides, he added with a finality that felt rehearsed, it is tradition for the son to carry the family estate. Tradition. Convenience. Favoritism dressed up as logic. I felt myself shrinking in my chair, but for the first time in my life, I did not stay silent. That is not fair. The room stilled. My mother's expression hardened. Evelyn, she said sharply, do not start this. Your brother is the rightful heir. You should be happy for him. Happy. Happy that decades of invisibility were now being inked into legal documents. Happy that my parents had decided I was worth nothing, not land, not savings, not even symbolic recognition. I excused myself from the table, walked outside, and tried to breathe through the ache building in my chest. Minutes later, Luke came out with a smirk. Come on, Evie. You know they always planned it this way. Do not make it weird. That was the moment I realized everyone in that house understood the hierarchy, except me. I left shortly after, telling my parents I needed time to process. I expected something. A follow-up conversation. An apology. A moment of reflection on their part. Instead, 3 days later, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my mother. A message so blunt, so cruel, it felt like a physical blow. It is over between us. If you cannot respect our decisions, you do not need to be part of this family. 16 words. 16 words that severed 25 years of my life. I stared at the screen for a long time, numb. I kept reading the message over and over, as though repetition might change the meaning. It did not. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, the ocean wind rattling against the windows. And for the first time in years, I let myself feel everything. The rejection, the invisibility, the love I had begged for but never received. Something inside me broke, but something else awakened. If they had chosen to cut me out of their legacy, then I would build one of my own. From the ground up, from nothing, on my terms, with my name. And that decision made through tears and trembling hands would lead to everything that happened next. The days after my mother's message felt like I was walking through fog, heavy, shapeless, and strangely quiet. It was the kind of silence that does not comfort you. It unsettles you. It asks questions you are not ready to answer. I had always believed that even when we fought, even when I felt unseen, there was still a thread connecting me to my parents. But that message, those 16 words, cut it clean. So I did what wounded people do. I tried to keep moving. But moving forward with a cracked heart is not graceful. It is stumbling. It is falling apart in the grocery store because your mother's favorite brand of tea is on sale. It is crying in the shower because no one taught you how to build a life without a family behind you. Still, beneath all the grief, something else began to grow. Resolve. The quiet kind. The kind that whispers instead of screams. I decided that if I could no longer belong to the family I was born into, then I would belong to the life I chose. I had always loved writing. It was the one thing that made me feel less invisible. But loving something and believing you can make a life from it are two very different things. For years I told myself that writing could be a hobby, not a career. I did not want to give my parents another reason to dismiss me. But now, their approval no longer mattered. So I emailed the editor of a small online magazine, Harbor Echo, a publication for coastal stories and personal essays. I had hesitated to submit my work before, afraid of rejection. But rejection had already come from the place I feared losing most. What more did I have to lose? 2 days later, I got a reply. They wanted to feature my essay. I stared at the email with disbelief, reading it again and again. It felt unreal, an affirmation I had been waiting for my whole life. I submitted more work. They accepted it. Then more. And soon, the editor, Marissa Hale, asked if I wanted to join their team as a part-time staff writer. For the first time in months, my heart felt something other than heaviness. It felt possibility. Working for Harbor Echo was nothing like being at home. There was no hierarchy based on birth order. No one silenced me when I spoke. No one compared me to a son who could do no wrong. Marissa was a force of nature, sharp, warm, always reading people deeper than they expected. After a few months, she invited me to join her for coffee. "You know," she said, stirring her cappuccino, "you write like someone who is carrying a heavy story, one that wants to be told." I froze. For a moment, I thought she somehow knew everything. But she simply smiled. "When you are ready," she said, "let it come through." Her words stayed with me. They fluttered around inside me like trapped birds, waiting to land. And slowly, I found my voice stronger, bolder, more honest than ever before. My personal essays started gaining traction, then went mildly viral, then more. People wrote to me about how my words made them feel seen. It was surreal to be valued for the very parts of me my own family had dismissed. Within a year, Harbor Echo promoted me to senior writer. My income doubled. My confidence bloomed. My heart, once bruised and hollow, began to fill again. But success has a strange effect on memory. It makes you realize how deeply the past can try to anchor you. I had not spoken to my parents or Luke in over a year when the first whisper of trouble floated my way. A childhood neighbor messaged me on Facebook. "Hey, Evie, are you okay? I heard things are rough at your parents' business." My stomach tightened. I had not thought about the marine business in a long time. I had spent so many months trying to heal that the idea of worrying about them again felt dangerous, like reopening a wound that had just begun to close. But curiosity is powerful. I asked her what she meant. Apparently, under Luke's management, the business had been struggling. Late shipments, unpaid suppliers, rumors of debt. At first, I dismissed it. Small businesses go through rough patches all the time. But then I heard it again from someone else. And again. Even though I tried to stay detached, some part of me still cared. Caring, even when you wish you did not, is one of the cruelest traits humans carry. Weeks later, I received a message from my aunt. We were never close, but she knew enough to worry. "Your parents are having a hard time. Luke too. They might lose everything if things do not change." Lose everything. Everything they chose to give him. Everything they believed I did not deserve. I sat on the edge of my bed, letting the words settle inside me. Not with satisfaction. Not with revenge. But with a strange, aching sadness. This was not the victory moment the movies promise. It was not vindicating. It was heartbreaking. They had built their entire legacy on the foundation of one child, and it was crumbling beneath him. And still, they had made no effort to reach out to me. One evening, after a long writing session, I received a call from an unknown number. Normally, I ignore those. But something compelled me to answer. "Hello." A hesitant voice replied. "Evelyn, it is your father." My breath caught in my throat. For a moment, I could not speak. His voice sounded older, strained, cracked in places I had never heard before. "I know we have not spoken," he said slowly, "but we would like to see you. Your mother and we need to talk." There it was. The moment I had imagined over and over again. Them reaching out, apologizing, trying to mend what they had broken. But his tone was wrong. It was not warmth, or remorse, or love. It was desperation. Something had gone terribly wrong. I did not answer right away. 1,000 thoughts swirled. Did they want help? Did they finally see my worth? Or was I just the last option on a sinking ship? "I will think about it," I whispered. He exhaled with relief, as though my small promise was a lifeline. We hung up. I sat still in the dark apartment, the only light coming from the street lamp outside. They wanted me back now, not as a daughter, but as a solution. A familiar pain pulsed through me, but this time underneath it, a different feeling emerged. Power. Not revenge. Not triumph. Just the quiet power of someone who finally understands their own worth. I was no longer the girl begging for a seat at their table. I was a woman who had built her own. And if I chose to return, it would be on my terms, not theirs. The night after my father called, sleep refused to come. I lay awake listening to the soft hum of the city outside my window, cars passing, distant voices, the rhythm of a world that had kept turning even when mine had shattered. I had spent years rebuilding myself piece by piece. Now, suddenly, the people who broke me wanted an audience. By morning, one truth had crystallized in my mind. I would not return to them as the Evelyn they remembered. I would return as the woman I had become. The drive to my hometown took 2 hours, but it felt like slipping back into another lifetime. The closer I got, the tighter my chest became, not with fear, but with anticipation. A sense of finality pulsed beneath my skin. It was late afternoon when I pulled up to my parents' house. The white paint had dulled. The garden was untrimmed. The house looked tired. My childhood home had always stood proudly, almost arrogantly. Now it sagged under the weight of neglect. I took a breath and walked to the front door. Before I could knock, it opened. My mother stood there. For a moment, neither of us spoke. She looked older, not just by years, but by burdens. Her shoulders curved inward slightly, and the spark of certainty she always wore, the one that said her world was intact because she controlled it, was gone. "Evelyn," she whispered, as if the word were fragile. I had imagined this moment thousands of times. Her apology, her embrace, her regret. But instead, she stepped aside stiffly and said, "Come in. We need to talk." Not "I am sorry." Not "I missed you." Just need. I followed her into the living room. My father sat on the couch, hands clasped tightly, staring at the floor. Luke was there too, his leg bouncing nervously, his jaw clenched. The golden boy no longer looked golden. We sat in heavy silence until my father finally spoke. "Our business is failing," he said, voice hoarse. Suppliers pulled out. Customers turned to competitors. Debts piled up faster than we expected. Faster than Luke expected, I corrected silently. But I let him continue. "We're close to losing everything," he added. My mother's eyes flicked toward me, not with remorse, but with calculation. And there it was. The truth I knew but needed to hear out loud. They had not called me because they wanted me back. They called because they wanted something from me. "What does this have to do with me?" I asked. My mother folded her hands in her lap, composing herself. "Your writing career has been successful. People read your work. You have influence. If you were to highlight the business publicly, write about its history, its importance to the community, we might be able to bring customers back." So that was their plan. Not an apology. Not a reconciliation. A publicity favor. "Evelyn," my father added quickly, "you owe us at least this much. We raised you. We gave you everything we could." Something in me snapped. I leaned forward slowly, my voice steady. "You disinherited me." My mother stiffened. "That has nothing to do with this." "It has everything to do with this." For the first time in my life, I saw them flinch at my words. "You chose Luke for everything, every opportunity, every resource, every piece of your legacy. You chose him so completely that you had no space left for me." My father's jaw tightened. "You are exaggerating." I laughed softly. Not because it was funny, but because the denial was absurd. "You cut me out of your lives. You sent me a message saying it was over between us. You ended our relationship to protect the son you believed deserved everything." My mother looked away, her face hardening. "I wrote that in anger." "No," I said calmly. "You wrote that in truth." Silence. The kind that shakes the walls. Finally, Luke spoke, his voice sharp with defensiveness. "This is not about the past, Evelyn. This is about now. We are asking you for help." I turned to him. "You had everything handed to you. All the power, all the trust, all the support. And you lost it. Not because of me. Not because of fate. But because you never learned to stand on your own." His face reddened. "You do not know anything about running a business. And yet here you are," I said softly, "asking for help from the sister you dismissed." My mother's composure cracked. Her voice wavered. "Evelyn, please. We do not have anyone else." Those words hit something deep inside me, not guilt, but grief. The grief of realizing that the people who should have loved you never truly saw you until they needed you. I took a slow breath. What exactly do you want from me? My father straightened. A public campaign. Articles. Interviews. A way to get attention back on the business. Enough to stabilize it. Enough to save the family home. Save the home. The same home they had chosen to give to Luke. The house is in foreclosure, my father admitted quietly. We're out of time. I stood. Every eye followed me. For years, I had waited for this moment. The moment I could finally tell them how much they hurt me, how deeply their choices had carved into me, how long I had tried to be worthy of their love. But now, standing before them, I realized something. I did not need their apology to heal. I did not need their recognition to exist. I did not need their validation to be whole. I had built a life without them. A life that was strong, meaningful, and undeniably mine. And helping them, saving the home they denied me, restoring the business they refused to let me be part of, would not fix the past. It would only repeat it. My mother's voice trembled. Evelyn, you will help us, right? I looked into her eyes. Eyes I had once desperately wanted approval from. Eyes that had seen my brother as everything and me as nothing. No, I said softly. The words seemed to ripple across the room. My father's face reddened with shock. Luke's hands balled into fists. My mother's breath caught. You would let your family fall apart, she whispered. You let me fall apart, I replied. And you never cared. Tears filled my mother's eyes, real ones this time. But remorse does not erase harm. Especially when it comes too late. I am not doing this to punish you, I continued. I am doing this because I finally understand something. I paused, letting the truth settle. You chose your son. You chose your heir. You chose your legacy. And now, you must live with the consequences of that choice. They stared at me, stunned. I stepped back toward the door. For years, I begged for a place in this family. But today, I am choosing myself. My father stood abruptly. Evelyn, if you walk out that door, I am not walking away from you. I interrupted gently. I am walking toward myself. And with that, I left. The sound of the door closing behind me felt like the final exhale of a long, painful story. In the weeks that followed, the business failed. The house was sold. Luke moved to a smaller town. My parents relocated quietly. Their perfect facade finally dissolved. People asked if I felt triumphant. I did not. This was not victory. It was truth. And truth is rarely glamorous. But my life, the one I built through resilience, self-worth, and a voice no one could silence, continued to grow. Harbor Echo offered me a full-time editorial role. My writing reached more readers than ever. I found community, purpose, and a sense of belonging I had never known in my own home. I learned that family is not defined by blood. Family is defined by those who choose you, those who see you, those who value you without conditions. And I chose me. Finally, fully, unapologetically. If my story reached you, if you have ever felt overlooked, erased, or pushed aside, know this. Your worth is not defined by anyone else's blindness. You are allowed to walk away from people who cannot love you the way you deserve. And you are allowed to build a life that honors who you are, not who they wanted you to be. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Share your own experiences. And if you want more stories told with honesty, heart, and courage, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay close. This is Evelyn. And this was the moment I finally chose myself.